Good morning, everyone, as people are filing in. Welcome to the first session in our governance track at the Project Play Summit. Now, I'm Marty Fox. I am the program manager for Project Play. I support a lot of our partnerships and policy work. Why does the summit have a governance track this year? But because a conversation about sport governance in this country is needed, I think, more than ever before. And we know this because a congressional commission told us so. Right, after 2 years of work, the Commission on the State of the U.S. Olympics and Paralympics put forward a dozen different recommendations based on their conversations with stakeholders inside and outside the U.S. The report points out that the youth sports system in the U.S. is generally ungoverned. Right? We don't have a Ministry of Sports, and the report doesn't recommend one. Our model is too different, but that doesn't stop us from learning from other countries, taking the best ideas and making them work in the American landscape. Project Play has always been open to that sort of learning. One of the core pieces of the Project Play framework, physical literacy, was actually a concept developed by Canadian researchers in the 2000s. We have an open dialogue with our partners at Aspen Institute Mexico and Jumpstart Charities in Canada, who you'll hear from on this panel. And we are also an American member of the Association for International Sports for All, or TIFISA. Last fall, we researched 12 of the world's leading sports systems to set a benchmark for the US. Where are we excelling compared to our peer countries? Where are we behind? And what was interesting, what we found in that research, was that while the experts all agreed that the US is the most successful country in international sport, by far, that's mostly because we're a large, wealthy country, and not because we're doing an especially good job of developing world-class athletes. And in fact, on a per capita basis, we're ranked 40th. The average Swedish, New Zealander, or Australian child has a much better chance of becoming a world-class athlete than the average American. And number one in this ranking, which won't surprise anyone who's been to a Project Play Summit before, was Norway. Norway has a guiding document called the Children's Bill of Rights in Sports, but in Norwegian. It's a shared statement of values that runs throughout every piece of their sports system. Together with the Center for Sport and Human Rights and other experts, Project Play adapted the Norwegian principles into the Children's Bill of Rights in Sports, which has since been endorsed by more than 300 athletes and more than 200 organizations since it was published in 2021. So in this session, you'll hear about how the host communities of the 2026 World Cup are centering children's rights in their event planning, and then come back to this room after lunch for our second governance session, where we explore how local stakeholders can rally government support for youth sports at the city and county level. And with that, I'll hand it over to my friend Neil Davis.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. Thanks for being here, everybody. I hope everyone can hear me. Do we have a lot of soccer fans in the room? Raise your hand. All right, so everybody's excited for 26. I'm excited for this panel. We're here to talk about the largest single sport in the world, right? And especially in 2026, it's going to be 104 matches instead of 64. First time it's hosted in 3 countries. We've got folks from all 3 countries here today across 16 cities. So there's just tremendous opportunity to focus on a legacy for children, and these panelists are going to talk to us about that today. We're going to do the panel in 2 parts. We'll have Canada, sorry, I'm the US person here, but Canada and Mexico, and then we'll wait to hear from Adam and Brianna beyond introductions. So with that, I'll get us started, and Marco, I'll start with you. If you wanted to just quickly introduce Jumpstart Charities, that would be great.
Sure, thank you. Real pleasure to be here this morning. So my name is Margarita. I have the honor of being the president of Canadian Jumpstart Charities. It's a large sport for development charity based in Canada, and we are fully supported by Canadian Tire Corporation. No, we don't just sell tires, but it's a 100-year-old multi-billion-dollar retailer that has a real history in sport. The charity has been around for almost 20 years. Since that time, we've helped well over 3 million Canadian children and communities from coast to coast to coast, and dispersed somewhere in the vicinity of $300 million targeted to sport for development activity. I'll share a little bit more about some of the work that we do and the tie-in here. From a soccer perspective, our actual state of play survey report that we launched just a few weeks ago in Canada that we did with Aspen showed that we are clearly a soccer nation. It outranks participation compared to every other sport by a long shot, especially when you segment by race and ethnicity. So I think it's clear that Canada is certainly needs to be part of this conversation because that's the sport that kids want to play.
Yeah, and very much focused on inclusivity and gender equality, right, too, as well. Margarita, you want to go ahead?
Hi, my name is Margarita Safdie. I work for Aspen Institute Mexico, and I'm the director of Project Play Mexico. Project Play Mexico started just 4 years ago, and we have a guía de juego, a playbook, where we have 9 barriers, basically saying what's the situation in Mexico, and based on that, we work on bringing opportunities to our Mexican children, to give them the opportunity, chance to play a game. And that's a huge problem in Mexico. I'll talk more about it later. Thanks.
Brianna, go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Brianna Keys. I'm the Director of Human Rights and Sustainability for the FIFA World Cup 26 New York, New Jersey host committee. So I lead on our community engagement and policy development to protect targeted vulnerable populations and all of our residents and visitors for the World Cup in 26. I started this work back in 2020 when I was senior policy advisor to Governor Murphy in New Jersey for children and families. So my background is in public policy and social and gender policy. And so we have made youth a focus from the beginning and really excited to continue now in the host committee.
Yeah, and I hope everyone knows, but they've got the final, right? So. Yeah, and Adam, go ahead.
Hey friends, I'm Adam Lewis. I lead Human Rights and Sustainability for the FIFA World Cup in Kansas City, Missouri, and also hold a public service appointment as the chair of the, let's see if I can get this right, the Nature, Recreation, and Culture Committee for the City of Portland, Oregon. Prior to this, my work has always been in play. And I mean play, whether you decide to do a hopscotch court that your neighbor's daughter drew on the sidewalk, or we're putting on pads and a helmet and hitting each other over at Arrowhead Stadium. I think they're the way that we learn about justice, they're the way that we learn about equality, and they serve as a creative catalyst to push our world forward.
Yeah, great. So we'll get started with questions now. Marco, I'll start with you. Again, can you just tell us a little bit about your involvement with Project Play to date? Even though you were already a big player in the youth sports space,
Yeah.
I think it's important to.
And I think I'll start there, right? Without even knowing it, we've been operating in Canada for close to 20 years, as I mentioned, and our program portfolio consists of community granting. We support anywhere between 1,200 and 1,500 community organizations every year through a sport for development lens. We support individual families as well. We build recreational infrastructure across the country that has an inclusive lens to it, so through a universal accessibility lens. And recently we launched a program for girls and young women who are aspiring leaders to help them become those leaders through sport and in sport. So we were doing all this work and we realized, it's very much in line with kind of the mentality and philosophy that the Aspen Institute Project Play had established so many years ago, and we reached out to see, how can we leverage the work that you've done across the U.S. and beyond to better inform how we're going about our work, and importantly, what value can we add? And the first thing we needed to do, believe it or not, Canada had no survey conducted on youth sport participation for well over 20 years. Until we asked Tom and his team, can we conduct a Project Play survey as a starting point to better understand what the wants and needs of Canadian youth are. We just launched that report 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, we did it at the tail end of all of our COVID restrictions, so we only got 3,000 respondents across the country, but it still allowed us to really understand geographically and by race and ethnicity what the wants and needs of kids across Canada are. And that youth lens has been completely absent from everything that's been done in youth sport in Canada up until this point. We work with a lot of partners. Some of them are here in the room representing rights holders, so charitable organizations representing some of the rights holders in Canadian professional sport, for example. They have the same dilemma. We have to create our own evidence base to go out and do this work. And that's when we took a step back and also realized, wait, we have another opportunity to really do some of the work through a human rights lens by leveraging the Children's Bill of Rights in Sport, which is the project we're currently working on with Aspen to promote adoption across the Canadian sport ecosystem at both the national, regional, and local level to really get behind the Children's Bill of Rights in Sport as a filter through which we all do our work in communities across the country. So that's kind of, an abridged version of the relationship we have. I think there's a lot more opportunity for us to explore going forward. I'd love to be on that national panel that Tom mentioned earlier this morning as an example to lend that international perspective. But I think we're just scratching the surface in terms of what we can do together.
Yeah, and your charity's endorsing, right, the Children's Bill of Rights officially.
100%.
And that brings it into governance, right? And that's why I think it's also so important. So Margarita, for you, can you tell us about how you've leveraged Project Play in Mexico as well?
Yeah, well, we have a guía de juego, that's how we call it in Spanish, a playbook. And we basically did a diagnosis of what was going on with the children and what was the status, have the children had opportunities in Mexico or not. We used the methodology that Project Play USA used, but we adapted to the Mexican context. And we went and asked the children what was the problem, what they thought about it. And we asked the parents, and we asked the teachers, the professors, the coaches. And we realized that there were 9 barriers, basically all impeding that the children being active. There's no infrastructure, there's no physical education teachers, there's no policies, the parents are not interested, they are not good models for playing, and they don't bring the children, and there's no opportunity, especially for girls. There's no teams for girls. Like if you want to bring your son to play, it's great, but if you bring your daughter, it's more expensive, there's no team, and it's difficult. And believe it or not, Mexico is very an important, the soccer is super important in Mexico, and the girls who less play in the continent are the Mexicans. The Mexican girls are not playing soccer, and this is because it's not really feminine. There's that culture there that you shouldn't be playing soccer because it's more for masculinity. So we're breaking all these barriers with our playbook, and what we have done basically is create a space without barriers. So we are partnering up with different organizations and creating these sport fairs where we bring all the federations and organizations to show their sport, and we bring their children and have them to play each sport without any rules, just to play, to touch, I don't know, a tennis, a racket, a bat, I don't know, to do some judo, taekwondo, and things like that. The children in Mexico, they have never done that. They only have the opportunity to play soccer, but not the girls, basketball or baseball. And it's been very successful because the children receive a passport every time they enter to the fair. They go and play the different sports, and then the passport has different pages. So you play basketball, you get a stamp, and in the end they go and get a medal, and they go on the podium and get a picture. And it's amazing because when they come out, they go and tell the parents, look, I want to do fencing, or I want to do archery. Like, what? We didn't know that exists. And it's amazing. We're putting together those opportunities, especially for girls. And last year we impacted 30,000 children around Mexico, because not just Mexico City, we did it in Monterrey, in Merida, in different places, and it's been a great opportunity. So we are working on that. And I'll talk to you about the barriers later.
Yeah, and I love the diversity in sports, but you're still building mini pitches, right?
The mini pitches is something incredible because now we are partnering up with different organizations. For instance, Musco that builds stadiums. So they are donating a mini pitch in Mexico. And when you put the mini pitch in Mexico and we promote that for girls, let me tell you that last year we did one, and at the inauguration day we had 80 teams of girls who wanted to play, and of course we welcomed them, but they didn't have soccer balls, so I pulled out one of my trunk and gave them what I have, and basically they never played before, but they went out just for having that experience. They play, and I'm sure the community organized later different tournaments, whatever, but we brought that opportunity.
I mean, we need a Jumpstart in everywhere, in Mexico, and
Yeah,
everywhere else, I think.
We really need you there.
But we can go ahead. You said you wanted to say something about barriers.
Well,
think
as
you
I'm
mentioned
telling,
a few,
the
but-
barriers are terrible, but especially in girls. And at the government, this is a governance table. The government, we don't have a Ministry of Sports, we don't have funding, and now we are changing the government. So right now, the government in Mexico is going to change completely. So what we started, and we've been working for the last 5 years, is going to stop, and we're going to start again with the new government, and we need to start building alliances and promoting physical activity and all that. And thank God we have the playbook, because that's our credential. That's how we explain to people the importance and increase the awareness of physical activity.
Great, thank you. And Marco, I just want to thank you both, actually, Marco and Margarita, because you've been tremendous resources as we try to secure more endorsements of the Children's Bill of Rights in sports. And so it's been great to have your assistance with that. So Marco, can you tell us a little bit about what that's looking like in Canada? You mentioned that, a little bit that you're working across the country, but.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, we're endorsing it at Jumpstart, and it'll be one of the pieces that will pass on as an incentive for funding to the organizations that want to receive funding and support from us. So they'll have to equally get behind that Bill of Rights. So that's 1,500 organizations a year that are also going to amplify that important work. But we're leveraging the very strong relationships we have with a lot of national sport organizations, a lot of organizations that work at the intersection of youth sport, to encourage them to adopt. Nothing that, I can announce one, because he won't be, he won't be upset that I did this, but Canada Basketball, by the way, he also wanted me to tell you that look out USA at the Olympics, because Canada's coming for you. So Mike Bartlett will be happy to have me share that they're getting behind the Children's Bill of Rights in Sport. There are a large number of other organizations that we're in talks with right now. But I quickly want to add that the Bill of Rights in Sport, from our perspective, and this is one of the things we're sharing with the organizations we're reaching out to, is it's a first step. If you go back to that research that was pointed out earlier, the report card, there were 4 key themes that emerged as being indicative of a strong youth sports system. One was having that overarching vision and aspiration for a robust, healthy, human rights approach to youth sport participation, but equally there was significant sustainable funding, usually in the form of national lotteries. Now in Canada, we're seen as the largest community sport funder, but it's not enough compared to what a lot of other places like the UK are doing, for example. Interconnectivity between the different parts of the sports system, and the more horizontal it is, the more successful that youth system is, and incentives. So, holding organizations to account by incentivizing them to adopt safe sport practices or concussion safety protocols, or endorsing things like the Children's Bill of Rights in Sport. So I think we need to think about this as a first step towards checking the box really strategically on all those other elements that are going to lead to robust youth sports systems.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Margarita, did you have something else, including sharing an endorsement?
Exactly, now that you're sharing, I need to share, right?
Yeah.
No, and the good thing is that we're going to have the World Cup in Mexico in 3 cities, Mexico City, Monterrey, and Guadalajara. And now we have the city of Zapopan, which is like the center of Guadalajara, where the tequila and the mariachi is born. So that city, Zapopan, has endorsed the Bill of Children's Rights, and we are working to have the new authorities in Mexico City and Nuevo León or Monterrey to endorse it, and I'm sure they will do it.
Yeah, great. Thank you
That's
so
great news.
much to both of you for all of your help and all of the comments to date. So far, I should say. And so now we'll turn to Brianna and Adam with the World Cup host cities and Kansas City Mayor's Office. So Brianna, you all have chosen to endorse the Children's Bill of Rights in Sports. Can you share with the audience why?
Yeah, thanks. So that's the news that I'm making today from New York, New Jersey, is that as a host committee, we're endorsing the Children's Bill of Rights in Sports.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, thanks. We are super excited. As I shared in my intro, I started this work back in December 2020. Lauren LaRusso, who's our co-host city manager, was also with me in the Gov's office, called me and said, we're bidding for the World Cup. We have to write a human rights report. Can you help me? And I, of course, said yes. And my first thought was, oh my God, I'm working on the World Cup. But like my second thought immediately after that was, what an incredible opportunity we have, right? Even in my role as policy advisor to the governor, where I was tasked with helping him set and drive forward his agenda around children and families, just thinking of the attention and awareness and opportunity that comes with a mega sporting event like this, and the largest one in history, focused in New York and New Jersey. Once we got the finals, right, even more excitement is building around it, and not to mention the infusion of economic opportunity that comes with an event like this. So we knew from very early on that we wanted to have a focus on youth. And so the Children's Bill of Rights in Sports really just helps us publicly state this is what our commitment is, and these are what our central tenets are. And so we're really looking forward to engaging youth, centering them in our work, really building games in New Jersey and New York City in a tournament that is supportive and protective and inclusive for everyone, down to our youngest residents.
Yeah, and it's great because Marco's using his influence to topple organizations in Canada to get them to endorse. And once the final host city does, those endorsements, I think, will roll in from a lot of the other host cities. Go ahead, Adam. Go ahead and tell us about the state of play and the insights from the report, because you recently hosted that in Kansas City.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll leave you all with a little bit of a teaser. There is an announcement coming from the mayor of Kansas City this afternoon, so stay tuned on that. So a little bit of background. Kansas City is getting its first ever state of play report, which we're very, very excited about. And in terms of insights, I'll sort of start with this, is that a mentor once told me that adults have been ruining youth sports for years. And I think, frankly, that's true because we get it wrong all the time, right? Like, we think about these preconceived notions of Canadians only being interested in hockey and soccer and Mexico only being interested in soccer. And we would have no idea that kids want to try other things unless we ask them, which seems like kind of a novel concept sometimes. So none of this data is published yet, but I'll share sort of some cursory findings that's guiding our work. So Kansas City's not that big of a place. And we found that there's about maybe a little over 3,000 different youth sports providers, not individual programs, but providers. Yet only 20% of kids are getting 60 minutes of daily activity. And so there's a disconnect there, right? And my brain immediately went to, okay, it looks like we're putting programs in the wrong places, they're not accessible, there are all of these barriers, but also, what are kids doing if they're not playing? And the statistic is kind of startling, but 11% of kids in the Kansas City area are on a screen for fun. So they're not doing their homework, they're on their phone, they're on their computer, they're posting TikToks for over 11 hours a day.
Wow.
And yeah, that reaction is right, that was my reaction. And I'll kind of cap off the insights by this. So my work in Portland previous to this was working primarily with incarcerated and formerly incarcerated youth. And I was meeting with one of our players' probation officers one time, and he said to me, he goes, Adam, I don't really care about soccer or sports or anything like that. And in my mind, I think that's a weird thing to say to your client's coach. And he said, but if they're with you, they're not anywhere else. And so as we think about shaping what these insights are teaching us about Kansas City, is that we know where 11% of the kids are for the time that they're not in sports and they're on their phones. And that's certainly not healthy. And so what about the other 89%, where are they? And that's the group we really need to reach.
Yeah. 11 hours, I'm still stunned. I could never do something like that, but I'm of a different generation, right? But Brianna, why don't you tell us exactly what challenges you were trying to address when you decided as a host committee to endorse?
Yeah, thanks. So we're sort of tackling this in three different areas: geography, community engagement, and legacy. So New York, New Jersey, we've got 564 municipalities in New Jersey, 5 boroughs of New York City, the largest metropolitan area in the US. We're the most diverse area in North America. It's an incredible opportunity. It's also an incredible challenge, right? We are going to need intention and deliberation to ensure that we are being truly inclusive and protective of all of our population. And so again, having central tenets that we can point to and use as our guiding star will be really helpful for us. Community engagement. We have historic, really great progressive values and systems in New York and New Jersey, but there are still massive silos that exist between community partners, between local government, state government, and so we really view ourselves as the host committee as a connector and a catalyst, bringing folks together. So part of what we're hoping is that we can not only prepare for the World Cup, which is a scale of an event that even in New York City and New Jersey, where we host mega events all the time, is still much larger than anything we've ever seen. So how can we build systems in place so that moving forward they exist? There's continued collaboration, that exists much past 2026. And then finally on legacy. So New York, New Jersey have incredible soccer history. Kearney, Patterson, two of the US birthplaces of soccer, led by immigrant communities. That passion still exists heavily in our state and city. And so bridging sort of our goals around community engagement, protection, inclusivity to soccer specifically is sort of what we're really hoping to leverage with the World Cup. So how do we take the specific opportunity of soccer while making long-lasting change in our communities and our systems to really build protections and make people feel safe and like they're a part of it, right? We want people to walk in to our spaces in New York and New Jersey and feel like I was thought of when they created this for me.
Yeah, you had also mentioned a lot about economic equity and fans being priced out of tickets, so how do you make it memorable for all? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there's a very limited number of tickets, and just we don't control the pricing, I'll just say that, the host committee. I also don't have tickets to give out. I would love to give them out to everyone, but we just don't. But sorry guys. So we are focused on spreading the literal and figurative wealth that will come with the World Cup, right? And so there is a friendly rivalry that exists permanently between New York City and New Jersey. As a host committee, we are truly partners, and Mayor Adams in New York City and Governor Murphy in New Jersey are incredible partners. It was because of them, really, that we got the finals, and their hard work and dedication and engagement. But we recognize, right, that it's not, like, the tournament is not the games, right? And it's not even just the fan fest that we create. It's how are we engaging our communities? How are we bringing it to them? And how are we ensuring that everyone gets to say, I'm a part of the World Cup coming to New York and New Jersey?
Yeah, that's wonderful. Adam, you talked a little bit about the phone challenges, but I know that the report must have highlighted some others that you might be trying to address. So can you talk about that also?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is split sort of into two main talking points. And the first one I'll kind of open with a metaphor, and that's that we don't need every youth sports provider to be on the relay team, but we do need everybody to be running the same race. That what a report like this can help us do is all orient in the same direction, right? Right now we have some youth sports providers that are running backwards, some that are doing cartwheels, some that are impeding the progress of others. But to fully embrace what a society that is playful could be in Kansas City, we have to get everybody with sort of focusing towards a North Star. And that's what this report opens up for us. And the second piece that I'll talk about is I don't actually look at human rights work more broadly and play as a human right as different things. That as we think of critically about play in our cities, we should always be asking, how is play a function of decarceration? How is play a function of housing? How is play a function of conscious urban development? Because they're one and the same. Play should be a tool to help us reach these broader human rights, as well as being a human right itself. And that's what I think that this report opens up, is us being able to stop guessing and actually use concrete, accurate data to take these steps.
Yeah, and again, to integrating a cross-function, right, naturally, and making it part of the way you just do things, I think is really important. So fun stuff now, activations that are planned in New York, New Jersey. Go ahead, Brianna.
Yeah, we're really, really excited. I mean, so of course we're looking forward to having a steady drumbeat of activations and engagement, really bringing out the community between now and 2026. But we have two, sort of one that's short-term, one that's long-term, that we already know about that we're excited to share. So this summer, MetLife Stadium in New Jersey will be hosting Copa games. So we're hosting 3 games. And to do that, they are installing a grass pitch on what is otherwise a turf field. And for a couple days afterwards, that pitch will remain in place. And so we are bringing in our community, youth sports orgs, organizations that work with diverse youth, and giving them 2-hour blocks to play a match on that pitch at MetLife Stadium. So we're super excited about that. I will say it's sort of the scope of that will depend on funding. So if anyone has dollars that they want to give us, we are open to discuss. The other, and so that's really exciting, right? Because again, when we talk about what is the opportunity that we had to engage, the opportunity to come to one of the largest NFL stadiums in the country and play on the pitch, like that's transformational for folks. So we're really excited about that. And then the longer term engagement that we have is we are partnered with the US Soccer Foundation, and we have a commitment to build 26 mini pitches throughout New York and New Jersey on the road to 26. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the US Soccer Foundation's work, these mini pitches that they build are in underserved communities and are paired with community programming to make play safe and empowered for youth. So again, that's like a key part of our legacy piece is, one, how are we building physical infrastructure in our communities that will last long beyond 2026, but also how are we building and connecting those community partners to those spaces so that it's not a pitch that's just built and then abandoned after July 19th.
So what do you think it would be, what would you want children to remember as adults after the World Cup has come and gone, let's say 10 years later?
Yeah, so the vision that we talk about in New York and New Jersey is that in 10 or 20 years, people who are then in their 20s and 30s look back and say, I remember when the World Cup came to New York and New Jersey, and this is what it meant for me, and this is how I participated. And for the overwhelming majority of people, right, that's not going to be that they got a ticket to a game. And we're going to have fan fests that are built to be inclusive and safe spaces and protective. And again, still, many people will not go to those. And so we are being very deliberate in going out to our communities and to youth and saying, what does engagement look like to you, right? For some, that will be, all I want is a ticket to a game, and if I can't do that, then I'm not interested, and that's fair. But for many, it will be, I want the opportunity to have a mini pitch. I want my mom and dad's business to participate in this. I want a watch party at my high school. I want to meet a soccer legend, right? Those are all things. And so, right, and that's not, obviously we only have so much power and money and scope, and we're not going to be able to, realize every kid's dream. But the more that we talk to them and we understand, it doesn't have to be grand for many of them, right? Like just small engagement to know that you were thought of, that opportunities were designed with you in mind can be transformational.
Yeah, what about you, Adam?
What do I think the World Cup will mean for children?
Yeah, 10 years later, like legacy-wise, what would they say? Or what
Right.
would you want them to say?
So I, just before the 1994 World Cup, I had just turned 1, so I naturally remember that one really well, and I can speak to the legacy on that. So I kind of split this question up into 2 buckets in my mind, is what do we want kids to remember about the World Cup the day that it ends? And what do we want their life to be like in 10 years? And I think after the games end, and I know this sounds watered down, but every kid should feel like they were safe existing in our spaces. Whether they were playing in activations, whether they were at FanFest, whether they were at the games, whether they watched the game on TV, they should feel safe being exactly who they are. And I know that sounds watered down, and I know it sounds simplistic, but we haven't done that yet. And then in 10 years, some of these kids that are teenagers are going to be thinking about having kids of their own. And I think that they should look at the World Cup as a before and after moment. that should be when we've catalyzed that the children now, their children, aren't going to be worried about walking to a park down the street because they think it's unsafe to play, or they don't like their coach, or they're priced out of sports. That I think that there's very much this palpable opportunity that I think we all understand, but I'm not sure if we've really grasped it yet. That this is the biggest sporting event in the history of the world, and we got lucky enough to have it in these 3 countries. And I think that anything less than taking this opportunity in stride would be a failure. That if we come out of July and say, that was a great party, see you later, then we've done something seriously wrong. And I'm intentionally using the word we. That everyone in this room has the responsibility and the know-how to get it done. So let's do it.
I was going to also ask you to close us out, but I don't know if you have anything else you want to say, but that was a pretty good closing, so.
Thank you.
If you have anything else you want to add, go ahead.
Oh geez, the pressure's really on now. No, let's open it up to questions.
We're gonna do that. But if anyone is interested in endorsing the Children's Bill of Rights in Sport, you can contact Marty Fox, right? Maybe not this week. And myself, I help him out with some of these things. So just reach out to us throughout the course of the day. So we'll open it up for Q&A. Does anybody have a question they want to ask any of our panelists? Okay, go ahead. Yeah, please.
Thanks for everything. Am I good? Do I need a microphone?
I think you're good.
I'm good. I can be
Yeah.
loud.
Yeah,
My
be
name is
loud.
Dan Michelson. I work for the U.S. Department of State down in Washington, so happy to be here. And yeah, I love this idea of a World Cup for children. I would just flag for you that there is so much more happening besides the World Cup. We have mega sporting events coming to the United States through the end of 2034. We're supposed to get Salt Lake City. We find out on July 24th if we're going to get to host those Winter Games, Olympics and Paralympics in Utah. So this is awesome. I just hope the momentum continues. And you gave the date July 19th.
Is the date of the final in
Yeah,
2026.
that's just a date in this decade of mega sporting events. So there's a lot going on, and I hope we find a way to continue this.
Great. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, I was hoping to hear a little bit more of how you use the Bill of Rights, how you plan to use the Bill of Rights in some of these activities you're talking about, community engagement specifically.
Yeah.
How do you plan to elevate that or get more traction and action on that during some of these activities?
Yeah, so key tenets of the Children's Bill of Rights in Sport include empowering youth and utilizing youth voice. So that's really what we're hoping to build on, is intentionally including youth in the design of activations and in the activations themselves, right? And so youth and children are just one specific vulnerable population, right? As my responsibility for human rights is to focus on all populations, but that's also ensuring that children are not lost in all of that as well. So it's really a tool for empowerment and constantly reminding us, okay, are we bringing them in? Are we elevating them? Are we empowering them, protecting them, and following their wishes in what we're doing?
I could
Yeah,
jump in.
go ahead, and then you, okay?
Mina,
Yeah.
should I talk about that?
Oh, yeah, if you want to, yeah, sir.
So we are basically translating the whole thing into Spanish, and we started that already. And we are developing a program where we could bring children into this field and have the cities, as I mentioned, and the local organizations to endorse it. And we still remember our World Cup in Mexico. I'm not going to tell you my age, but it was in 1986. Oh my God! And we still remember that, and it was an amazing opportunity for us. And we were really young. We didn't even go to the games or anything, but we had a party, like a constant party for I don't know many
Constant
days.
soccer program.
Yeah, about sports. So we're going to be doing that, of course.
Yeah, you can make them do the math for your age if you want to look at it. But yeah, go ahead, sorry. I had called on you and she had something to say, I didn't see it. Please, go ahead and ask your question.
No worries. My name is Emily. I work for the Colorado Soccer Foundation, Denver. I hear us leaning a lot into listening to youth. How are we bridging all of this work with the public education system?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think this is where, as host committees, we can't do this alone, right? When we talk about long-lasting change, like the New York, New Jersey Host Committee is an independent 501c6. We are not a government entity. Many of us on the host committee come from government, but that's also where we recognize not just the benefit, but the need to partner with our governments to make long-lasting change. So, in New York and New Jersey, I meet regularly with folks from City Hall and New York City government. I meet regularly with folks from the New Jersey Governor's Office and state government. I can say that the New York City Department of Education is so excited about all of our work and is constantly trying to leverage it and build it into their curricula and everything that they're doing. But yeah, it's going to be incumbent on us to continue those partnerships and to bridge those gaps.
If I can. So again, this is where looking at the data, especially with the state of play type data, comes in really handy. The report we released showed very clearly that kids participate predominantly in and after school, and that the cost of participation was much lower in and after school. And once you peel away that barrier, the financial barrier, which we know is the most prevalent for all participants, transportation comes out number 2 as a barrier. Well, you don't have that issue when you've got in-school and after-school activity. So I go back to what Adam said. We do not have a demand problem when it comes to participation amongst youth. We have a supply problem. And until we shed light on what's dysfunctional with the supply problem, whether it's venue participation or otherwise, we're not going to solve this. And so we really need to continue grounding ourselves in what the kids are saying and using that to advocate for changes in the way we're delivering sport.
That's excellent.
I'll add
Go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
one really quick thing to that is I think the dissent that we often get from school districts, and like every public school district in the country is underfunded. And so they say we don't have time, we don't have the money, we don't have the resources. And I think a really helpful way for me in thinking about this is not thinking about this sort of dogmatic rhetoric of sports are too expensive, right? Like everybody knows in this room that sports are too expensive, but instead flipping that and saying, how much could sports save us, right? If we get every kid running track, playing basketball, hopscotch, foursquare, whatever, after school, think about how much our cities will save on everything from childhood obesity to pre-diabetes to incarceration to graduation rates.
All the social costs.
Right, and so I think that flipping that narrative can be a really useful tactic in getting decision makers to come to your side.
Yeah.
If
all of the
anyone wants a
social-
tool, let me know. Reach out to our AVP of Programs and Advocacy is here in the room. We've been working with an organization called 4Global. We've developed, adapted a social return on investment tool that they've been using in the UK for use across Canada. And what we've shown in aggregate with the granting we provide to communities is for every dollar we invest, within 12 months, we get $13 of return through reduced youth offending, reduced healthcare utilization, and improved employability through better academic performance and participation. So we know the returns are very tangible, and they're easy to wrap your. A 13-to-1 return is not, astronomical, but it's significant. So we have those resources if anyone would like to tap into them.
Yeah, that's amazing. Last question there, and if you have more, just come and talk to the panelists after. Go ahead.
Sure, just piggybacking off of what was said, we learned a lot through the pandemic, specifically in marginalized communities where there's a lot of sick people in, Black and brown communities, diabetes and all that. So is there a plan where, you were talking about the mini pitch press, is there a plan, if they can't put those kind of facilities in those marginalized communities, is there anything else that they can put that can offer opportunity to get kids just playing, doing drills or doing some type of soccer drills if it's not a mini pitch facility?
Do a sports fair.
Yeah, so what I can say for New York, New Jersey, and I'll let others talk as well is, like I said, we've committed to building 26 mini pitches across New York and New Jersey. And again, there are 564 municipalities in New Jersey and 5 boroughs in New York City, right? It means we're not going to touch every community with a mini pitch. But I do think that there are other opportunities, and part of that is working with the communities to determine what spaces do you have, what are the resources that you need, right? For some, they may have a perfectly usable space, they need staff, they need equipment, right? And that's part of where, again, as a connector and catalyst, as the host committee, we may not have, I mean, we have to raise all of the money for our operations and everything, so we may not have the dollars ourselves, but we can bring partners to the table and we can say, this community is in need and you have the resources that you can offer them.
Yeah. Aspen Institute has a role as a convener, and that's what we're doing. We're basically bringing the sports fairs to every city, every community, every school. We do any type of sports fair, like anything. We bring the passports, we bring the medals, we bring the organizations and the federations, and have the children to play. And even though we don't have the money to put a lot of mini pitches, 26, oh my God, we're just putting one and we're like, wow. I wish. We're doing that. We're building, increasing awareness, and that's the main thing, I guess. No.
Okay, we'll have to close it there, but thank you all so much. I'm going to turn
Thank you again to our panel. And before we break for lunch, we do have one more piece of news that we want to share. And to make a quick announcement, I would like to bring up my friend Kelly Izzy-Gazette.
Hi everyone, my name is Kelly Izzy-Gazette, and I'm an assistant director with UNICEF USA. I have an exciting announcement to make, but first I want to thank you all for joining us and being part of this important discussion on the Children's Bill of Rights and the World Cup host cities. As you heard from our panelists today, the host cities and organizations are doing important work. We know that sporting events have an impact on children's daily lives, and can also be a chance to build a legacy, not just for teams and attendees, but also for future generations. Recognizing, as you heard from a panelist, recognizing that the FIFA World Cup represents an opportunity to prioritize the well-being of children, several national organizations came together to discuss collaboration for opportunities to support the host cities in elevating the voices of children and young people in the planning, execution, and legacy of the Games. And so today, I'm happy to announce the launch of the Child Rights and Sports Alliance. The Child Rights and Sports Alliance is a collaboration between Aspen Institute's Project Play, the Center for Sports and Human Rights, the National League of Cities, UNICEF USA, and the U.S. Soccer Foundation. And I would like to ask the Alliance members to please stand up so you can be recognized today for your hard work, dedication, and planning. Thank you so much for being here. So our main goal is to elevate the rights and voices of children to drive community impact before, during, and after the FIFA World Cup 2026. For all the host cities here today, you will receive more information on the Alliance in a follow-up communication. But we want to thank you for your commitment, collaboration, and your host cities' commitment to endorsing the Children's Bill of Rights and Sports. So us, the Child Rights and Sports Alliance, we believe that we're all part of one team, one community, working together to create a better future for generations to come. Together, we can build a world of play and connection for children everywhere. So stay tuned for future updates, and we hope you can join us in this journey. Thank you all so much.